Welcome to Revenge Chronicles. This is the story of how I bought my childhood home from the aunt who stole my inheritance and turned it into something that would make her face her own cruelty every single day. My father died on a Tuesday in March. I was 26 years old, sitting beside his hospital bed, holding his hand as his breathing slowed and finally stopped. I had been there for 3 weeks straight, sleeping in that uncomfortable chair, feeding him ice chips, reading him his favorite books when he was too weak to hold them himself. My Aunt Patricia showed up twice. Once for 15 minutes when he was first admitted. Once more the day before he died, just long enough to have a whispered conversation with him while I went to get coffee. I should have known then. I should have seen it coming. My father and I were close in a way that Patricia never understood. After my mother left when I was 7, it was just the two of us against the world. He worked double shifts at the factory to keep our little house on Maple Street. That house meant everything to him. His father had built it with his own hands in 1952. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a backyard where he taught me to catch fireflies in mason jars. He always said that house would be mine someday. That it was my legacy. The reading of the will happened 2 weeks after the funeral. I sat in that lawyer's office feeling hollowed out, still wearing black, still unable to eat more than a few bites at a time. Patricia sat across from me in a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She had this look on her face. Satisfied. Expectant. The lawyer read the will slowly. I remember every word like it was branded into my brain. The house, the savings account with $47,000, the family heirlooms, my grandmother's wedding ring. All of it went to Patricia. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not pull air into my lungs. Patricia reached over and patted my hand. Her fingers were cold. She said my father had realized I wasn't responsible enough yet. That I needed to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. That he was doing this for my own good. I found out later what really happened. My father, in his final days, confused and heavily medicated, had been convinced by Patricia that I was planning to sell the house the moment he died. That I had gambling debts. That I had been stealing from his account while he was sick. She had documents. Forged bank statements. A fake letter from a debt collector. She had built an entire fiction around my life, and my dying father, the man who trusted his sister completely, believed her. She had the will changed 48 hours before he died. I left that lawyer's office with nothing. No house. No inheritance. No family heirloom to remember my father by. Just a grief so heavy I thought it would crush me and a rage so hot it could have burned down cities. Patricia moved into the house immediately. She redecorated. Tore out my mother's rose garden. Painted over the growth chart my father had kept on the kitchen door frame, marking my height every birthday from age 3 to 18. She threw away boxes of photographs, my old school projects, the quilts my grandmother had made. She erased every trace of me from that house like I had never existed. I could have fought the will. My father's lawyer suggested it. But Patricia had resources I didn't. She had time. She had money. She had a forged paper trail that would take years to untangle. And I was barely keeping my head above water, working 2 jobs just to afford my studio apartment. So I made a different choice. I decided to survive. And then I decided to thrive. I started with nothing but my education and my anger. I had a business degree I had never used, too busy taking care of my father during his illness. I took a job at a small investment firm, starting at the very bottom. I worked 16-hour days. I studied constantly. I learned everything I could about real estate, about markets, about building wealth from the ground up. I lived on rice and beans for 2 years. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't go out with friends. Every single penny I didn't absolutely need went into savings and investments. I was obsessed. I was driven by something darker than ambition. I was fueled by the memory of Patricia's cold hand on mine and her satisfied smile. By year 3, I had my real estate license. By year 4, I was flipping my first property. It was a tiny, run-down cottage that everyone else had passed over. I saw potential where others saw problems. I put in the work myself, learning plumbing and electrical on YouTube, spending my weekends covered in sawdust and paint. I sold that cottage for triple what I paid. And I took every cent of profit and rolled it into the next property. 5 years after my father died, I had a portfolio worth over $2 million. I owned 6 rental properties. I had a reputation in the real estate community as someone with an eye for undervalued gems and the determination to transform them. And I had never stopped watching the house on Maple Street. Patricia, as it turned out, was terrible with money. She had burned through my father's savings within the first year. She had taken out a second mortgage on the house to fund her lifestyle. Designer clothes. Expensive vacations. A luxury car she couldn't actually afford. She was living a life built on the foundation of her betrayal, and that foundation was crumbling. I got the notification on a Wednesday morning. The house on Maple Street was going to county auction for unpaid taxes. Patricia owed $32,000 and didn't have a penny to pay it. I cleared my calendar for the auction date. The morning of the auction was cold. December. Frost on the ground. I dressed carefully. Professional but understated. I didn't want to look like I was gloating. I wanted to look like exactly what I was. A successful businesswoman making a sound investment. Patricia was there. Of course she was. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a worn coat and shoes that had seen better days. She was trying to bid on her own house, the house she had stolen from me, but her bids were weak. Desperate. She didn't recognize me at first. I had changed in 5 years. Grown into myself. Lost the haunted look of grief and gained the confidence of someone who had built themselves up from nothing. I placed my bid calmly. Clearly. $35,000. Patricia's head whipped around. Our eyes met. I watched recognition dawn on her face. Horror. Disbelief. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She tried to counterbid. Her voice shook. But she didn't have the money. Everyone there knew it. I won the house with a final bid of $38,000. The house my great-grandfather built. The house where I grew up. The house my father had wanted me to have. The house Patricia had stolen through lies and manipulation. It was mine. I walked out of that auction house without looking back at her. I didn't need to. I could feel her stare burning into my back. I could hear her calling my name, her voice cracking. I kept walking. The next part is what I am most proud of. I could have moved into that house. I could have lived there, reclaimed my childhood home, made it mine again. But that felt too small. Too personal. I wanted to do something bigger. Something that would honor my father's memory in a way that Patricia would have to witness every single day. I turned the house on Maple Street into a shelter for abandoned elderly people. Adults whose families had cast them aside. Seniors who had been betrayed by the people who should have cared for them. People who had been left with nothing and no one. I named it after my father. The James Hartley Home for Displaced Seniors. I gutted the house and rebuilt it. I kept the bones, the structure my great-grandfather had crafted with such care. But I expanded it. I added accessible bathrooms. I created comfortable bedrooms. I built a community space where residents could gather, share meals, and find family in each other. The rose garden that Patricia had torn out, I replanted it. I found the same variety of roses my mother had grown. I put in a bench with a plaque that read in memory of James Hartley, who believed home was where love lives. I hired staff who genuinely cared. I created programs. I made sure every single person who walked through those doors knew they were valued. That they mattered. That being abandoned by family didn't mean being abandoned by the world. And Patricia had to drive by it every single day. She had moved into a small apartment 3 blocks away, the only place she could afford after losing everything. Every morning, she would see the house that used to be hers filled with people laughing, living, being cared for. She would see my father's name on the sign out front. She would see the roses blooming in the garden she had destroyed. I ran into her once, about 6 months after the shelter opened. She was at the grocery store, buying generic brand everything, counting coins at the register. I was there picking up supplies for the house. She saw me and froze. Her face went through about 15 emotions in 10 seconds. Shame. Anger. Regret. Fear. I walked over to her. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. I told her I wasn't there to gloat. I wasn't there to rub her face in anything. I told her what she did to me, what she did to my father's memory. It would take me a long time to forgive. Maybe I never would completely. But I had made something beautiful out of her ugliness. I had taken the pain she caused and transformed it into purpose. I told her the shelter was always open. That if she ever found herself alone, truly alone, with no one to turn to, there would be a bed for her. Because that's what my father would have wanted. Not revenge. Not cruelty. But compassion, even for those who didn't deserve it. She started crying. Right there in the grocery store. Tears streaming down her face. I paid for her groceries. I didn't say another word. I just paid and left. She has never taken me up on the offer of a bed. But I see her sometimes, walking past the house slowly, looking at the garden, watching the residents on the porch. I don't know what she thinks about. I don't know if she feels remorse or just self-pity. I don't know if she understands the magnitude of what she did or if she has justified it in her mind. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that the house on Maple Street is full of life again. Full of love. Full of people who have been given a second chance. My father's legacy isn't a building. It's the dozens of people who have found safety and dignity within those walls. It's the community that has formed around caring for those who were cast aside. I built something larger than any inheritance. I built a monument to the values my father actually held. Compassion. Hard work. Taking care of people who need it. And I did it all on my own. With my own 2 hands. With determination and grit and a refusal to let betrayal define me. The last time I visited the shelter, I sat in the garden for a while. The roses were in full bloom. Red and pink and white. I could almost smell my mother's perfume in the air. Almost hear my father's laugh. An elderly woman came and sat beside me. Margaret. She had been with us for 8 months after her children had put her in a facility and stopped visiting. She took my hand in her weathered one and squeezed. She said thank you. Not just for the shelter. But for proving that family isn't always blood. That sometimes family is the people who show up. The people who care. The people who see you when others look away. I squeezed her hand back. This is my revenge. Not destruction. Not cruelty. Not becoming the thing I hated. My revenge is building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. My revenge is honoring my father's memory in a way that helps others. My revenge is proving that Patricia's lies about who I am were never true. I am responsible. I am capable. I am someone who stands on her own 2 feet. And I am someone who takes a stolen inheritance and turns it into a legacy worth having. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to Revenge Chronicles for more stories of resilience, justice, and reclaiming your power. Every subscription helps us continue sharing these narratives of people who refuse to let betrayal break them. We have many more stories waiting for you, stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary strength. Click that subscribe button and join our community. Your support means the world to us. Retry.